While there's been modest recovery and an expected acceleration in economic growth to 3.5% going into 2018, the Sub-Saharan African economic picture is best described as a glass half full.
Notwithstanding this recovery, we're still going to have a situation where 12 out of the 45 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, people in those countries will not be enjoying any increase in per capita income. This is about 40% of the population in the region, or 400 million people.
Fiscal vulnerability, a slowdown in economic activity, exchange rate pressures, and underperforming state-owned enterprises are all conniving to stifle the region's prospects.
We do see growth accelerating further still to around 3.5%, which again is good news, but again short of the 5-6% growth rates that the region was enjoying through 2014. So a lot of work to be done to put in place the policies, policy environment to get growth back up to the 5-6% we need to make a dent on, significant dent on poverty reduction going forward.
One of the areas that has seen concerted effort is in reining in escalating public debt levels. The average debt to GDP ratio for African countries has risen from 34% in 2013 to 48% in 2016 and will exceed 50% by 2018.
Now, the encouraging thing about the fiscal side is that government budgets generally show fiscal consolidation in the coming years, which should help to stabilize, debt at its current level. But it's one thing to articulate policies and quite another to implement them, and we are highlighting the need to move forward from articulation to policy implementation.
The Bretton Woods Institution has also called for rapid economic diversification and says it's capacitating national tax administration bodies to increase revenue collection. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, let's get more on that report. Farai Mwakutuya now joins us in Harare. Farai, welcome to the show. A suddenly more positive outlook this time around, Farai, but the IMF did point to high debt levels as a key issue complicating that outlook. Give us a sense of the scope of the problem on the continent and certainly how much it will impact the sustainability of growth.
Well, Uche, as stated in that outlook, debt levels have gone up from about 34% to 48% last year and will go to beyond 50% in the coming year. Now, that is a real cause for concern because there is a threat that some of these governments may fail to recover and it may be unsustainable for them. What is happening is that the report has also quoted that the cost of servicing those debts has also gone up, and so these countries will remain burdened. What we're also seeing is that there's less fiscal space, limited fiscal space for these governments to invest in capital and other crucial projects. And another trend highlighted in this outlook is the fact that indebted externally, governments are now looking increasingly internally, and what that does is it crowds out the private sector, and because there's no private sector investment, that will have an impact and subdue economic growth, and so going forward, this is negative for these African countries. Uche.
Now, Farai, as we heard there, the fund continues to suggest fiscal reforms as key to stimulating growth on the continent. It also says that there are many countries that are facing a period of fiscal consolidation, but it did say there is a problem with implementation. So give us a sense of their findings there. What countries are implementing these fiscal reforms?
Well, there are a number of countries that are undertaking these reforms, but I think what the IMF has urged and what it's calling for is that let's not pay lip service to these problems. Let's implement them quickly. Let's accelerate the pace at which we are undertaking these reforms. A lot of the time, these are medium to long-term measures, whereas they should be short-term and should be addressed more immediately. What has also come up quite prominently in the discussions today, certainly when government officials responded and private sector responded, was the fact that there should a balance between fiscal consolidation and development needs. And so we shouldn't rush to cut expenditure or reduce borrowing across the board. There are certain expenditures that are actually good expenditures. A good example is here in Zimbabwe, where Zimbabwe needs to invest in upgrading its rail and road network, in putting up new power plants. That is a significant and intense cost which needs to happen to act as a catalyst for more investment, to attract FDI, the private sector to be able to grow in terms of its capacity utilization and therefore lead to the economic growth that we're looking for. And so it shouldn't be a blanket cut in terms of fiscal consolidation, but it should strike a balance in terms of the development needs and also the need to ensure that debt is sustainable.
Right. Well, many thanks, Farai, for that update. Of course, Farai Mwakutuya joining us there in Harare.